Hi guys, it's Alan here, and today I'm going to talk to you about the next steps you can take to work on the Thinker project from the comfort of your own home. So we'll begin with this 3D printed model that the students of St. Peter's have printed for us, which is a fantastic place to begin. I'm lucky enough to have this, and unfortunately none of you do. But all that really matters, you can see that I've drawn some lines, and you can see I've got some numbers there, and at the back I've written down some angles, bends in the thigh, in the back, the distance between the thighs, things like that. So even without having your own 3D print, you've got a brother or a sister or a mother or a father or even yourself. All you need to get are key measurements and key angles. Obviously from here to here would be a measurement, and then the bend between there would be an angle. Okay, so that's one important thing. And now this is what I'm aiming for you to start working with, something that looks like this. But before we get there, you can see I've got a scale 1-to-1 reproduction of this Thinker. And you can actually see that mine is made as much as possible out of a single piece of wire. So I've actually tried to avoid cutting and adding as much as possible. So this would be the equivalent of a sketch. So if you've got maybe a photograph or a rendering, and then you've got a very quick sketch. So they're not exactly the same, but there are some major things that definitely do correspond, and it's not easy to see with the camera, which flattens the image, but some of the bends and some of the angles I've just tried to look at, and how they look in different directions. And I think even Rodin, before he made the Thinker, he would have first made sketches, then he would have made small maquettes, then he would have made large maquettes. So you can skip this step of the process, but in my opinion it's quite an important step. The next thing I did was to make a bigger version, and this bigger version, it's once again difficult to see because the camera flattens out the different layers of wire. But this bigger version, once again, I based the bigger version off of this blue guy, and I based it off of my smaller version. And some of the key points, once again, this bend over here in the back, and then the bend in the neck, maybe the volume of the head, and then the bends of the knees and the volumes of the thighs. You'll actually notice that this guy is really, really muscular, and that distance from the bottom to the top of his thigh is the same distance across his head. So he's very muscular. What you'll also notice is that his head is actually a block. If you draw a square around it, it's basically equally long and wide. So those are some of the things to pay attention to, and maybe depending on who your sitter is, you'll have different measurements, so that's also fine, because the important thing is to observe and copy. Okay, finally, I've ended up with this very, very blocky Thinker. Why did I go for such a blocky Thinker? Why did I not go for something that is more like this human-shaped or nuanced kind of person? The reason why I've gone for the blocky thing is because from here to here I can measure the distance, and these finger joints, which I'll talk about more later, which allow these wood pieces to be joined in a very strong way, they're easy to reproduce. So let me go across to a random piece of wood. Okay, so here I've got a round organic piece of wood. It's much easier for me to take a geometric shape and try and impose that geometric shape within the round piece of wood than it is for me to take the round piece of wood and try to cut accurate finger joints and get accurate distances. So what does that mean? This is a step which is going to give us proportion, strength, and accuracy. So the volumes will be correct, the distances will be correct, the angles will be correct, and these finger joints will actually be quite strong in the final thing. From here, the next step would be, to a large extent, to remove lots of material and refine the shape. And then here I've obviously done this very, very roughly because this was just meant to be an example. But then, because you know that your main shape is strong, you can now add small pieces to sketch and fill in volumes. And even if these pieces are not connected with the most strength, you know that the overall structure is strong. So these are just details, but they're not concerned with supporting the weight of the thing. So I've kind of tried to guide you from that to that to that to that. And I'll stop this video and I'll begin a new one to talk about the next part, which will be to show you, in fact, that I'm able to take this whole thing apart and I'm able to put it back together. So what that means is I've got kind of a blueprint and I've got something that is reproducible. So I can take a single element like this upper arm and I can reproduce it into a piece of wood. And that's obviously what we're doing. We're taking this, following the blueprint, and then we're executing it in large tree trunks. So that'll be the first step.